Let Leta take you on a journey of faith, life, travel, and interior design. Take your life out of the status quo and into 2020. Status Life with Leta is brought to you by Status Home Design and by the law office of Derek M. Hayes at 404-777-HURT.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Status Life with Leta on Business RadioX. We are broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio in the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. On every episode of Status Life with Leta, we take you on a journey of faith, life, travel, and interior design. We want to take your life out of the status quo and into 2020. My name is Derek Hayes, and it's my pleasure to introduce the star of the show, Leta Brooks. Good afternoon, Leta.
Hello, and good afternoon.
Before we get into today's show, and the content is terrific, I do want to go back and give you a quick reminder that Status Life with Leta is brought to you by Status Home Design, your one-stop shop for all your home and gift needs, and by the law office of Derek M. Hayes. Injured in Georgia? Make the right call to the law office of Derek M. Hayes at 404-777-HURT. Let's get started. Today's show, I know we're going to talk about a lot of things, but before we do that, I want to address the issue at hand, the coronavirus.
The pandemic.
The pandemic, absolutely. There are a lot of changes in our daily lives we've had to make, and unfortunately may still continue to have to make more changes as we move forward to get through this. And with that being said, I'm curious to see what changes you've made at your store and also with your interior design company.
Well, I'll start with the store, and unfortunately, it is with a very, very heavy heart that we are going to close the doors. Just while we are all being quarantined, we're being asked to social distance. It's really, truly, I'm putting my staff, myself, my children, everyone close to me. I would love to keep the doors open and be such a resource for my community. But honestly, anyone coming in that could possibly be affected, it puts everyone else at risk. So we have to make the smart decision here. We have to listen to our government officials. We are open today, possibly limited hours. Tomorrow will start the first day that Status is going to be closed. But here's the icing, right? The silver lining. We do have an online store. It is www.thestatusmarket.com. A lot of the home decor that we sell in Status Home Design is up on the website. We are shipping. We have a partnership with Rethunk Junk Paints by Laura, and our rep, Gretchen, she has been with me for many, many years. She has come up with a way, if you would like to do a home project and you have a 10 to 15 mile radius around Status Home Design, she will deliver the paint to your front door. So you can call the store, 470-991-0110. You can order your paint. You can, I believe, go to the website that I just mentioned and order your paint, and we will deliver it to the doorstep. So you can pay with a credit card and continue to work on those home projects. And
that's terrific.
We're trying to help. Anyway, what a better time to paint those cabinets, paint the bathrooms, paint those pieces of furniture. If we're all, going to be quarantined or we're being asked to stay inside, we're still trying to help as much as we can.
You're exactly right. In fact, I know there's been a state of emergency declared here in Georgia, and they're asking for businesses to do exactly what you're doing, and I'm glad to hear that you're doing exactly what they've requested. And also, I imagine, too, that honey-do list that's sitting on everybody's counter, and over the next few weeks, how much can be chipped away at with that Rethunk Junk Paint, for example.
That's very true. And what you don't know is your honey-do list is very long.
I'm scared to see it, actually. I can only imagine.
So for all of our listeners that may not know, this is Status Life with Leta, and my fabulous host here of my show is the man that I am doing life with. So his voice is on here. And yes, he has a very long honey-do list at home. But I want to pause real quick before we move forward in the show. And you asked about the interior design. This is really interesting because in years past, doing interior design virtually has been very difficult. But now we can actually get as much done with photographs, presentations. Everything is emailed, Skype. We can handle as much virtually as we can at a face-to-face meeting in my interior design studio. Honestly, the last couple of days, I've been getting caught up. I've been so behind on my interior design projects, and with everything kind of slowing down, I'm able to go full force with my clients. And I know all my interior designers are doing the same thing. We're all still working away. And that's really interesting that you wouldn't necessarily think in these challenging times. Everyone is home and we're working on the home. And with the interior designers being freed up from other daily things in their life that pull them away, we're able to give our clients 100% focus.
Right. It's a great way to get caught up on things, it seems like, as well. Absolutely. And on the same topic about the store, I did see earlier today that online you have a huge giveaway right now. Can you tell our listeners about that, how they can enter, what you're giving away? I think it's great.
Absolutely.
I want to enter. I don't know if I'm excluded, but I wouldn't mind entering myself.
You might be excluded. And but just you, Derek. Everybody else that's listening. So I'm going to mention what day it is today. Today is March 18th, 2020. So if you're listening to this podcast in future and March has already passed, do not fret. I'm going to tell you how to enter. Go through the same channels because we give away furniture and home decor every month. If you're listening right now, the launching on Instagram and Facebook. So go to my Instagram. Let's start there. At Status Home Design. You can't miss it. It's Are You Lucky, I think is the heading on the giveaway. It is a gorgeous cart/accent table. It's on little casters. It's a really, really nice piece of furniture. We are giving that, it's brand new, giving that piece of furniture away along with some home decor that goes with it. A black basket, the moss that I'm completely obsessed with, a flare candle, a boxwood wreath, and a You Are My Sunshine sign. So it's a whole package of home decor valued over $300. And again, start with Instagram. You can also go to Status Home Design on Facebook, and you can enter there.
It's very simple to enter, too. I looked at it myself, like I said earlier today. It takes a few minutes and you're done. But It's great. And the prize itself is incredible.
Right. The steps are there. You have to like Status Home Design and the other two Status companies that have social media platforms. Tag. The more tags or the more shares, the more entries you get. So if you tag 3 people, that gives you 3 entries. If you tag 10, you get 10 entries. And this table, this little accent table that we're giving away, it's our #1 piece of furniture that we sell for clients and out of the store. So once you go and look at the pictures, you'll see why.
A great way to deal with the coronavirus, too, and not again, kind of figure out
you
ways
gotta have a little fun.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
what we're here to do. We want to just elevate. We want to get people excited about something. Let's just do a contest. Let's do something to take our mind off this.
And you do those frequently, too, which is great. The giveaways and things like that.
Yes, about once a month.
That's terrific. All right. Well, we've been doing a very important series here in the last few podcasts called Designer versus Decorator. And I know we're going to finish that up today, and I've learned a ton. I realized what little I did know, and quite frankly, it's amazing the difference between the two and what I've learned. But also, too, apparently a lot of people have as well, because I know you received a tremendous amount of feedback, terrific feedback. Can you tell us about some of the things that have come in that?
That's the biggest statement. The feedback is how much people learned and the huge misconception that there is between an interior decorator and an interior designer. Most people use that term interchangeably, and yet they are very different jobs. They are very different qualifications, different salaries. And because the state of Georgia does not regulate that interior designers must carry a license, anyone, whether you're an interior decorator, whether you just have talent and think you can put things together well, anyone can use the term interior designer. And that's concerning for those of us who have the education, the degrees, we've sat and got our licenses. If you're in the business, you know more of what a true interior designer is and a decorator. But the general public does not know, and that has been the biggest takeaway from this, is how much there is to learn.
Right, and you've put the work in to be called a designer.
Yes, I have.
Education-wise,
Yes.
Experience, the many years you've been doing this.
I have a degree from a CIDA, Council for Interior Design. The college I went to, the University of Georgia, is accredited, and you have to have a certain amount of years of work experience under a licensed engineer, architect, or licensed interior designer. The blog post is up. I went ahead and put all of this in writing, and it is on the blog, statuslifewithleta.com. If you'd like to go through this again, or go back and listen to the previous 2 podcasts that will go over everything that we've been talking about, it's packed full of information. But I also added the link. So I can't get into the specifics of all the different paths that you can take to get your interior design license, but it is up on the website. Go to the experts. It would take me 4 more shows to tell you all those different paths. So I am actually in the process of getting my license. I'm talking about it. I personally feel like it's extremely important to have. I went to the accredited college. I've done all the work to get it. I've put the time in. I'm 20 years into my interior design career, but Georgia doesn't mandate it. So I
remember you said that.
It's frustrating.
Yeah,
it's frustrating
I'm sure it is.
to spend the money to do the intensive studying. It's a 3-part exam. It's going to take probably a whole 6 months. And I'm in the exam process. I've taken certain portions of it, but I can see why a lot of people just bypass taking it and going through the channels because you don't need it.
And you can call yourself that and not really have all that.
The state of Georgia says you don't need it.
Right.
But in reality, the profession itself, you should absolutely have it.
Well, again, that's something that I did not know, and I'm sure many listeners didn't either. I want to make sure before we move forward, you kind of referenced your blog. That blog is great. If you've not had a chance to go check it out, there's some terrific stories from other blog posts, but definitely check this one out, too, about the designer versus decorator.
Well, thank you. All right, so we're staying on that topic, and we're just kind of wrapping this up today because, again, it was so informative. I had people come up to me in the store and say, I had absolutely no idea that interior designers work so closely with builders. I thought an interior decorator and interior designer was exactly the same. Very different skill sets, again, like we touched on. So with that being said, I'm going to read the exact definition just to clarify this for people. And they'll say, all right, well, I'm listening to this podcast as your first podcast. So what's the difference? Here you go. Interior design is the art and science of understanding people's behavior to create functional spaces within a building. Decoration is the furnishing or adorning of a space with fashionable or beautiful things. In short, interior designers may decorate, but decorators do not design.
That's a pretty clear distinction right there.
Black and white.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you as well. So you've referenced the license a few times, licensed interior designer. So what's the benefit of getting that license in those states that have it?
Well, even the states that don't. So some that mandate it, and we're definitely going to touch on that. But to answer your question, there's a lot of different channels of interior design. Of course, there's residential, but there's commercial design, there's medical interior design, there's hospitality design, which is a huge, portion of design, hotels, everything, churches, wedding venues, restaurants. That's all falls under hospitality. And these are places that house the public. Having someone come in to work on any of these projects that doesn't know codes, doesn't know law, doesn't know handicap accessibility, doesn't know, flame resistant products, doesn't know where you use metal studs as opposed to wood studs, doesn't know headers, doesn't know correct windows. That's very, very, very important. A true interior designer with the education, the work experience is going to be much better suited for any type of commercial space. And because they have that knowledge, even in a residential capacity, if you have a large remodel, if you're doing space planning, you want to knock out some walls, plumbing, any aspect of the house, more than just changing paint colors, adding furniture, colors, that all falls under decorating. So it's really, really, really important to make sure that the person that you're hiring for the job is actually qualified. Just because they're using the term interior designer does not mean that they are.
Okay. So with that being said, again, just to distinguish the two, is there a median salary that you would expect as a designer as opposed to a decorator? Is there a tremendous difference in that respect? There
is a difference, absolutely. The median salary for an interior decorator, and again, don't want to call it a lesser of a position, but knowledge based.
Kind of position.
It's a completely different position. Right. The salary, let me say it correctly, annual salary for an interior decorator is $39,000. The median annual salary for an interior designer is over $60,000.
Sure. So it's indicative of the amount of time, effort, and education that went in to separate yourself between that decorator and designer.
Absolutely. And as is any position.
Sure. So you also, too, I want to go back and touch on one other point. You mentioned some states do require licenses. Which states, or are there a number of states that do require a license?
It's actually only 4, which is, again, I'm teaching this. I'm in the business. I don't think that's enough. Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Nevada. Those are all states that enforce the licensing requirements. And if you use the term interior designer and you do not have your license and you work and practice interior design in any of those states, you will be fined. And they are very vigilant about that. So I can speak from my own personal work experience. 10 years of my career was in Florida. Now, I had come from the SIDA accredited interior design program. I was young in my career at this time, but I had work experience. I was working under a licensed architect and a licensed engineer. I could not breathe the term interior design. We had to get real creative about what I was. I was brought to Florida in an interior design capacity and could not call myself an interior designer. So I was a project manager, building very large homes on A1A, if you're familiar with the Florida coast. And I've been a construction coordinator, again, building these homes, running the subs, working with the homeowners, working with the architects. I mean, ground up. This is where we would get a plat of land and start building. And I was working in an interior design capacity and could not call myself an interior designer. But I think it's important. I like how it governs, because when you're here, and I now am in the state of Georgia, everybody's an interior designer, whether you're qualified or not.
Yeah, and if I may interject for a second, I'm kind of thinking this through from my standpoint. In a profession that does require a license, as an attorney, you have to sit for the bar. You have to go through all the education to even be able to sit for the bar. And once you get a license, you're allowed to call yourself an attorney. But yet, if you hear someone reference themselves as an attorney and clearly they're not licensed, it's against the law. It's the illegal practice of law. You think about doctors, where a license is required there. Now, obviously, we're talking about different careers, different professions, but I can understand where having put the effort, the time, and quite frankly, even the money into that, how frustrating it would be to know that our state doesn't regulate it as they should. But I'm also thinking further than that. I'm thinking as an attorney, liability issues. If you hire someone who's, and again, it's not meant to minimize, but someone who is simply an interior decorator, as opposed to the designer, they're not going to be familiar with some of the, like you mentioned, safety aspects of your job. You've mentioned before where outlets can be placed in relation to sinks, the kinds of outlets you're allowed to have. You mentioned a while ago, fireproof paints and things of that nature that a decorator potentially would not know. There's tremendous liability that come for a business or a home if you don't hire the right person. Kind of like if you hire somebody to do surgery on your foot and in reality they're a dentist. Well,
correct.
It just doesn't make sense.
That's a great analogy. You're not going to hire an attorney who hasn't sat for the bar and passed it.
Right.
You're not going to hire an accountant who has not passed the CPA exam. Why would you not hire an interior designer who hasn't sat for their license? Now, we're talking in general terms because there are plenty of jobs, especially more in a residential capacity, that an interior may have a lot of knowledge, an interior decorator may have a lot of knowledge. They may have been working in the field. We're talking overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said before, I don't want to get a ton of hate mail from an interior decorator who's mad at me. I'm just educating the public. And I think it's really important, and going all the way back to the top of this show, talking about the feedback. People don't know. And I, in doing some research for the blog and for this series of podcasts, you can become a certified interior decorator, a CID, C-I-D. And you get your certification through, and I have the website here, www.cidinternational.org. So if you're interested, you're not interested in going back to school and getting an accredited interior design degree, but you would like to jump into this profession, become a certified interior decorator. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because let's say that someone comes to you, and we are in the state of Georgia, and they have their certification and they're for being an interior decorator, but yet they can use the term interior designer. So you're looking at their business card or their marketing material, and it says certified interior designer. You may very well think that they have their license or they have some sort of fancy certification. They're still not an interior designer.
That's a very
They're
interesting
still
point.
not licensed. You can use this terminology and fool people.
Right, exactly. And I kind of used the example of doctors a while ago. They talk about being board certified. And when you hear a doctor say they're board certified, well, hey, that means he's got all the credentials in the world and knows what he's doing. So if you hear certification, even as a decorator, it kind of gives it a little bit more power behind that statement. You
have to do your homework. If
Sure.
you're hiring an expert, ask them where they went to school. Ask them how many years they've been in the business. We, as the professionals, should be more than happy to share. And if we're not, it's because we're not qualified.
Right.
It's
right,
because we don't have the credentials, but yet we are working in a state that we can get around it. And it's very, very easy to get around it.
Yeah, it sounds like it, definitely. Well, again, we kind of touched on this very briefly a while ago, but I would like for you to remind people how they can find you. All the arms of your business, the entrepreneurial mindset you've got, you're into a little bit of everything, but how can they find you and your information about you and your blog?
All right, so let's start with the store, Status Home Design. That is the website, www.statushomedesign.com. That is the easiest way to find all of the businesses. The interior design firm is there. The blog is attached to that. The online store. You can go through any of the channels of any of the Status corporations that we have through that main website. If you'd like to go directly to the blog, statuslifewithleta.com. The online store, thestatusmarket.com. Now, each one of those domains has its own Instagram page, has its own Facebook page. So we have a lot of moving parts, but everything starts with the website.
It's very important, too, now with the pandemic and limiting the store hours or potentially even having to close if it's mandated, and another way to reach out to you during this time. I heard you say earlier, and you've referenced this before when I've been standing around you, that you do give free decorating advice through pictures and social media. I thought that's interesting. Can you tell us, is that really free?
Free. Yes, it's
really
like free. Thank you. And people utilize this. I'm a tool, right? I have the knowledge. Now, you used the correct terminology. I think you've been hanging out with me long enough because you just said free decorating advice. Now, if you send me a picture of your kitchen and you're asking me which wall you'd like to remove, I can't speak to that because I've not been in your home. That would be more interior design. What I can do is give you my suggestions. We can talk about where we could put the sink or different things, right? I mean, sky's the limit when we talk about decorating advice. But I've had people send me pictures of which paint color do you think I should use? Which sofa? Do you have any suggestions? Absolutely. This is my knowledge, and making these connections, helping people. That is what is at the core of all of this. Yes, it's free, but so what? I mean, that's honestly, it's the fun part. I love making the connections, and then they go put whatever we're working on online and say, hey, she helped me, and it was fabulous. And it warms my heart. I want to help.
Well, as someone who's taken advantage of that, well, I wouldn't say taken advantage, but someone who's gotten that phone call, hey, can you send me a picture of this room in your house? And then the next time you come over, you transform that room into something incredible. I can say you really worked magic, even based just simply on a photograph. It's great. It's incredible.
Well, thank you.
Another thing, too, I know you use the hashtag Design Your Life. So what exactly does that mean to you and your followers? I guess another way to phrase it, what's your platform?
So this is what they call a branded hashtag. Okay, this is a thing now in social media. So Design Your Life. And really, this encompasses everything about what the Status platform is. Yes, I'm an interior designer. Yes, I have a store, home decor, furniture. I've got a team of interior designers. That's where the word design fits. But we're also lifestyle. That's what Status Life with Leta is. And it goes deeper. So are we designing your room, your bathroom, your home? Or are you designing something much deeper? There's meat and heart in every single thing that we do. Nothing is without purpose. And that's the deeper meaning of design your life. Are we going to talk about divorce? Are we going to talk about weight loss? Are we going to talk about special needs and challenges in life? We can go deep. It does not have to be surface. It does not have to be about trends and interior design. And design your life means let's design the life that you want to live. And I'm here as a resource, and my whole team is too. So if you just need us in a design capacity, great. That's fabulous. But even here on this podcast, we're going to bring guests on of all different types to have some expertise that everyone that's listening is going to get something out of every show because they're designing their life.
That's great. I think we're 4 or 5 shows in now, and I've learned something in every one of them.
Well, fabulous.
It's been great. Okay, let's put you in the hot seat for a minute.
Me?
Yes.
What do you want to talk about?
As an attorney, I'm not putting you under oath. You don't have a bright light shining in your face. We don't have a court reporter. I'm not going to make objections. But
sometimes, let me tell my listeners, sometimes I'll tell Derek, he is an attorney, and I'll say, don't give me a deposition.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Don't put me in the hot seat.
And we call it legalese. It's a completely different language we speak. And when your kid comes to you and you say, allegedly you did this to your brother or your sister, then you realize what you're saying and have to rephrase. But having said that, I'm not putting you in the hot seat, but I do want our listeners to get to know a little bit more about you. Just a couple of quick points. I know you have status companies, 4 of them, and you're the epitome of a true entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit more about you.
About me. All right, we've talked about all the businesses. We have the store, the interior design firm, the blog, the podcast, the online market. Okay, so the blog and the podcast would be one. So those are the businesses. I have kids. I am not married to you, so that makes me a single mom. And don't give me that look. So my kids are 8 and 10. They are precious. I have a boy and a girl. And what else about me? I have been a dancer my whole life. That was I shouldn't say it was my first career. It was probably my first love. It was my first hobby. But I did, as I was working in Florida during the day as a project manager, construction coordinator, because I couldn't use the term interior designer, I owned and ran a dance studio at night for almost 10 years. So that was a lot of fun. I loved it. Loved teaching. Just probably what has morphed into what we're doing here today is teaching. That is what I love to do at the core. But then it was time to have some babies, and it was time to move back to Georgia, and that's when I opened up my interior design firm, and really the Status brand has taken off from there. Can you think of anything else?
Oh, I could go on for hours, but this isn't my podcast, and I've got bullet points. If you want me to start, I will. It's several
that's
pages,
okay. We'll save our listeners from that, but thank you.
Okay, well, we'll get back to that later. All right, you love to end these shows with a story, and you're a great storyteller, and I've been fascinated with the ones we've covered already, and I'm sure you have a great one for today. So end it with a wonderful story.
All right. So the purpose of the storytelling, again, I've touched on this in almost every podcast, and I'm going to lead into my story with this. Doing interior design or interior decorating, there's so much more purpose to it. People come to you, it could be something so simple as a piece of furniture, or what I'm going to talk about today is a barn door. But here is why I do what I do, and here is why #DesignYourLife is so important. So I had the pleasure of meeting who has since become a friend. I didn't know her at the time. She came to me through the store at Status, and she wanted a barn door. Again, this was when the barn door trend was at its peak. We were putting barn doors up left and right. But when you really get to talk to your clients and your customers and you really find out why and you make these connections, this is what is so important. Her name is Tammy, and she wanted a bright red, a true barn door red door put on her daughter's closet in her bedroom. And in talking to her, I found out that she wanted this because her daughter is severely physically disabled, needs round-the-clock care. They had just moved here from Naples, Florida, where her daughter, Lindsay, was riding horses as part of her therapy. And moving was going to be very traumatic on Lindsay. And so she wanted to bring part of Naples, Florida, and that barn into Lindsay's room. And so we did her room, Lindsay's room, with the barn door, some other pieces of furniture. We painted. She bought some items from Status that really looked like a red barn door red mirror. All the pictures are up on the blog. Take a look at it. It's under Stories to Inspire, and you can see what the room looks like. And when Lindsay saw it, she was just grinning from ear to ear. It just warmed her mom's heart. We did with barnwood. We put a cross on the wall. It's the meaning. Again, it wasn't just a barn door. It's what it meant to this family and to that young girl. So then we took it a step further. And Tammy, in 28 years, she and her husband Patrick had never taken a vacation because of the round-the-clock care that Lindsay needed. And they were able to take a trip to Italy, and that's where their roots are. I believe Patrick is Italian, and that it just meant a lot to them. So they called in some round-the-clock care for Lindsay, and they were able to fly to Italy. And in Italy, there was a little cafe right across from where they were staying, and they sat out at this table every single day. And they just fell in love. There was 2 turquoise doors outside of this cafe. She took a picture and said, I want those doors in my home. This trip was the most meaningful thing they had done as a couple in a vacation in 28 years, and she wanted to remember that trip every single day. So she called us, and after we did the red door for Lindsay's room, we went to work mimicking the doors from Italy, and we put a turquoise door up in her house. And she was just ecstatic. And again, these are things that are so near and dear to this family, and they're small touches. But just getting in there and really finding out how you're changing someone's life. That's Design Your Life. And that is what I'm here to do. And these are the stories that I want to tell. Again, I could have taken pictures of a home, but it doesn't mean anything.
That's terrific. And what you all don't see at home is she's got the photos pulled up here in the studio, and all of us in the studio are looking at those and see exactly what she's talking about. It's incredible. The door that you emulated from there in Italy looked perfect. The barn door story and the picture of the daughter there in front of the barn door looked great as well. So definitely a story to look up on the blog and read, and check out the photos.
Absolutely.
Check out the photos for sure.
And I want more stories. And this has been very interesting since the podcast has taken off. I hear stories. Everyone that I talk to, I went to an event the other night and thought that was my biggest takeaway. I probably said it to you, Derek, that night. Everybody has a story. Everybody has something that they've gone through. I could do this podcast 365 days a year with somebody new in the hot seat and a great story. And that's what I'm here to share. So if you have a story or somebody's been through something, whether it's joy, happiness, struggle, an illness, send it to me. Go to the website, Status Life with Leta, hit contact, and let me know. Let me talk to them. Let me help them. And let me bring their story to life.
Let them help you design their life.
That's perfect. That's
Absolutely.
what I'm doing. Yes.
And it's all wonderful. And that's a perfect way to end the show today. Thank you. This was very informative and terrific. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us on Status Life with Leta, presented by Status Home Design and the Law Office of Derek M. Hayes. Don't forget that you can enjoy any of our episodes anytime by visiting businessradiox.com, selecting the Gwinnett Studio, and then clicking on Status Life with Leta. This program is also available on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, for Leta Brooks, I'm Derek Hayes, and you've been listening to Status Life with Leta on Business Radio X.